show up. Ooh, show up. Ooh, I wanna show up as love. Hold the door open for everyone. Fill the room below to above. I wanna show up as love. I wanna show up as peace. See no other as the least. Listen more than I speak. I wanna show up as peace. I'm here to make the best of it. Give a lot and take a bit. Show up. Ooh, show up. Ooh, I wanna show up as truth. What you get is 100 proof. All I say and all I do, I wanna show up as true. I wanna show up as joy. Like a child with a brand new toy. Spread it, share it, fill the void. I wanna show up as joy. I'm here to make the best of it. To give a lot and take a bit. Show up. Ooh, show up. Ooh, show up. Ooh, show up. Ooh, show up. Thank you.
Happy New Year! Good morning. My name is Marianne, and on behalf of Rev Donna Maurer and the Board of Trustees, I am privileged to welcome you, yes, to the Sonoran Desert Center for Spiritual Living on this beautiful morning at 11 o'clock, sunshine included. Look what we did. Whoever you are, and wherever you are, on your spiritual path, you are truly, truly welcome here. Here you will be validated and supported and encouraged to be all that you're meant to be. Our vision statement is love in action. Every day, every way. We express this love by learning and living the principles of the science of mind. You'll find our Declaration of Principles. Please join me now in reading these.
I like to think of our chants as a way to...
I believe there is an infinite intelligence operating throughout the universe. I believe this intelligent power is only good. I believe this intelligence expresses as me. I believe through my conscious use of this power, I create my life as happy, healthy, and complete. And so it is. I love that phrase. If this is your first time here, we especially welcome you and thank you for your interest and curiosity. Do we have any new people here today? I know they're on the way. I would like to thank those who are assisting this Sunday. Our chair people, our dedicated chair people who just keep bringing them out and bringing them out and bringing them out. Yes, and our dedicated table people who keep us supplied with sanitizer and masks and informational stuff. And the Reverend, of course, Heather, of course, the practitioners, of course, our sound guy, of course. And if I've forgotten somebody, I'm so sorry, but they deserve a round of applause too. All right, okay. We have a new 8-week Zoom class starting February 4th through the March 25th called The Essential Ernest Holmes. This is an accredited class for those interested in becoming practitioners. But if you don't want to become a practitioner, you don't have to want to become a practitioner to take it. I'm taking it as a refresher because I haven't done these classes for 20 years. It's facilitated by John Lopez, and full details and a sign-up sheet are back at this table. So let's fill it up. It's going to be on Zoom, so you don't have to wear your mask or be concerned. Now, I think I got it. Yes. Please take a moment. Make sure those phones are turned off. There's one that always sneaks in, but turn your phones off and please prepare yourself for the rest of this time together. Thank you.
Let's just take a moment to set the tone for this time together and for the day to come. Take a deep cleansing breath. And let's open our hearts and spread our love and our compassion and our kindness today. We know that we are guided and directed by that power and that force and that love that created us. So in us are all the wonderful qualities of that Creator, that divine love that permeates our minds and our bodies and insists that we spread that love. So we give thanks for this beautiful day in this wonderful, wonderful spot in nature. We are so thankful. We are grateful. We give thanks for this day as we say together, and so it is. So there you are, you beautiful, wonderful godlings, you. I found an article in December's Science of Mind magazine, which of course I get to facilitate the classes where we talk about these things. I really like this. In December's issue, there was an article called Connection to Everything by Reverend Jane Beach. I enjoyed her words very much, and I hope that you will too. Have you ever had a moment when you realized there was more to life than getting up each day, going about your business, and doing it all again the next day? There's something greater going on. In one transformative moment, we can have a sudden shift in consciousness that allows us to see the majesty of life we are an integral part of. Divine love is you, and it is me. As a glorious child of the One, we're each part of the interconnectedness of all life. The presence of love is alive in the sun rising over the desert. I changed some of the words here. Rising over the desert and setting on the horizon. It's the little lizard scurrying quickly toward the protection of a nearby cactus as it looks for a breakfast of insects. It's the car engine starting for our driving pleasure and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. The awareness that we are connected to everything can happen at any moment. We can be completely transformed as we heal from an illness. Delight in hugging a friend or embracing a new idea. For me, the God of my understanding is in all things, at all times, in every circumstance. My prayer is to feel the divine connection, just as I can feel the warmth of the sun's rays. The sun has no judgment about who is worthy of its warmth. It simply shines. We humans are a curious bunch. We wonder what gift we can possibly bring to the world, not realizing that we already have within us everything we could possibly need to shine the light we already are. We are here to express our divinity in a way that is unique to us, as only we can do. We have purpose. We belong here. We matter in the world. Today, let's take time to be fully present in every moment. When we forget the truth of who we are, let's turn our faces toward the sun to remember we can step out of the shadows of our lives to feel its warmth. It's a constant reminder that we have within us our own light to shine. Thank you. I love you all. Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year.
In July, I wrote a song. It was kind of a song of perhaps a political nature at that time, but it's kind of become a song of hope, things to look forward to in the new year. When the world is kind, when there is no fear, when your neighbor knows that heaven is right here, when we put down the walls and show the way, that will be the day when borders fall and politics too, and divine mind is all that shines through, and all that kids ever need to do is learn and play. That will be the day, day that queens and kings who reign supreme are succeeded by peace. Dreams and hopes of you and me are free of disease. The outstretched hands of poverty are now raised in sweet release, and we will be in harmony when you get more than what you send, when you can feel the hug of a good friend, bloom and grow, leave your seeds where they lay. That will be the day, day that kings and queens who reign supreme are succeeded by peace. Dreams and hopes of you and me are free of disease. The outstretched hands of poverty are now raised in sweet release, and that will be the day.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, welcome to the first Sunday of 2021. Then we do have a beautiful new theme that's appropriate, I think. It's called Awakening. And by that, what we're really talking about is spiritual awakening, which is the discovery. And what Rosie read this morning dovetails so beautifully with my thoughts this morning. Spiritual awakening is really the discovery of something that we've always kind of intuited, that there's more to us than what we're currently perceiving. There's more to us than just the human body experiences. Tamara Lechner of the Chopra Center defines a spiritual awakening as a moment in which you stop looking towards the future or past and do not experience the present through an ego filter. In the absence of an ego, you are fully aware of your conscious being and everything that connects you to your surroundings. So if we think of our spiritual awakening as a process of deeper understanding of ourselves and our relationship to everyone and everything around us, then all of us are somewhere on that path, every one of us. And we've all had those moments when time seemed to stand still, and we felt nothing but that present moment. No ego, No past, no future, just now. And nature, as Rosie said, nature is often the catalyst for those moments. You know me, the night sky I love. And it just calls to us to drop our concerns, worries, fears, and simply stand in awe of the moment. And for a moment then, we feel that conscious cosmic connection to everything. And the same is true when we feel the ancient mysteries in the mountains, or become enchanted with the antics of a bird. There was a cardinal on the branch this morning, beautiful red, it's as bright as it could be. Or sometimes it just is there when we get our hands dirty planting a spring garden. Sometimes these spiritual awakenings are gone in a flash. They don't stay with us. And sometimes they stay with us for a little while. And sometimes they stay with us and the trajectory of our life is completely changed. I was reading about Eckhart Tolle, and it said that he was experiencing major depression and suicidal thoughts. And during one particular dark night where he was struggling so hard, he woke up in the morning with a sense of peace that he had never known before. And it has stayed with him all this time and enabled him to become a spiritual leader and powerful author. So I think most of us don't have those hugely powerful experiences, but we do experience a series of events, and they start to come together and make sense. So we gradually awaken. We might take a class, like John's class coming up, or a workshop, or begin a spiritual practice of meditation, of reading wisdom literature, of being in nature. And then in hindsight, we can turn around and see where we've come from, that the person that began that path is not the person that is on it now. So all this month we are going to be studying the nature of spiritual awakening and ways that we can respond to the world from that awakened state. And what better time to begin than the beginning of a new year, especially this one, when we're all pretty happy to say goodbye to the old one. However, I have what I think is an interesting topic today is change or transition. And usually when we hear the word transition, you and I think of death, like a physical death. But I'm using it as integration or transition as that process that allows us to integrate the changes that occur in our lives. William Bridges, who wrote Managing Transitions, Making the Most of Change, says there's a difference between change and transition. Change is a shift in the external of conditions. By contrast, transition is the mental and emotional transformation that we have to undergo to relinquish the old and start to embrace the new. So while change is an outward experience, transition is an inner one. It's our emotional reaction to the externals of change. And while change may occur very quickly, integration follows at a much slower rate. So according to Mr. Bridges, there's 3 phases of transition. Now his writing was mostly geared to the business industry as a way to see businesses as they transition from like one leadership to another. But it's also, it works for us personally as well. And so I think if we can understand these phases and recognize them as we personally experience them, then we'll be less likely to resist that process of change. And that allows us to be more open to our spiritual awakenings. And that's the ultimate outcome that we're seeking. So, 3 phases of transition. Phase 1, the ending. It seems strange to call the first phase of transition the ending. But here's the words of T.S. Eliot. What we call the beginning is often the end. And to make an end is to make a beginning, The end is where we start from. So in the ending phase, which is our starting point, change of some kind has necessitated the way we look at the world, the way that we need to lose or let go of an old outlook, an old idea, an old reality, even an old self-image, perhaps. And as I was reading Mr. Bridges' work, I was also thinking about, this is like the hero's journey. There's that beginning stage where the hero either feels this divine discontent, which says, this world that I'm in is not working anymore. So that may be the catalyst for his change. Or he may be thrown into it, as you and I have been thrown into changes because of the pandemic. But during this first phase, we are confronted with both tangible and intangible losses. And if we don't recognize this as part of a bigger process, then we are more apt to meet the change with resistance in the form of denial, anger, anxiety, disorientation. And we may feel those anyway, but we don't have to stay there, because if we recognize that this is the beginning of a transition, then we become more willing to release those old ideas, to let go of them a little bit quicker. Again, in the hero's journey, the call to adventure can either be accepted or refused. So refusal causes suffering, which is caused really by resistance to listening to the call. And when the hero understands that this journey must be taken if he is to develop his true spiritual potential, then even in the fear of that new thing, he is willing to accept the call to adventure. So that's phase one. Phase two is called the neutral zone. We've left the past behind, but the future has not yet arrived. We've talked about that quite recently in the works of Charles Eisenstein, where he is saying that we are in the in-between stage, that the old paradigm of separation is dying, but the new paradigm of oneness and connection has not quite come into view. So the world at large is in an in-between stage. But if we think of our personal life, think of a trapeze artist. She has just let go of her first swing, but she's not quite reached her second. So there's that moment that she exists in midair, suspended between past and future. So in our real life situations, this is this time when nothing appears to be happening. It's like, what do we do next? There's this stop. But actually, it's not that nothing is happening. In fact, this neutral phase can be the most creative of our total transition, because we're like the caterpillar in the cocoon, having broken down to a soup-like consistency that has everything in it to become the butterfly, but has not yet become to form. So it's almost like we're standing in that sea of infinite potentiality, but we haven't yet grabbed the next ring, the next bar. And this neutral phase is temporary. It can feel somewhat long-lasting, but just as an acrobat's preparation and training tell her that the next swing will be a mere pause and a reach away, we have our own accumulated skills that can help us navigate through this neutral time when nothing appears to be happening. We have our spiritual practices, like spiritual contemplation, meditation, prayer, reading wisdom, literature, and as I said before, connecting with nature, connecting with others of a like mind. Those are ways that take us through that neutral period. This interval between the ending of something familiar and the entrance into what is new, Mr. Bridges calls the fallow period. So while we may feel disoriented, anxious, or confused because we are in the in-between, we can remind ourselves that this too shall pass. And this is the time then that we need to be very gentle with ourselves. I love it. I love the song that you sing of Karen Druckers. We have to be very gentle with ourselves, hold ourselves like a newborn babe, because this is part of the process. And we can get through it, and we will get through it. And just as that fallow period for a field allows it to recover, re-nourish, and rejuvenate, our fallow time is ultimately for that purpose as well. So if we try to hurry that process, we may thwart our ultimate growth. As we give ourselves time to come to terms with any ending and begin to see the prospects for a new beginning, we have that opportunity then to redefine ourselves and the path that we are taking. And phase 3, the third of 3 phases, is the beginning. So the final stage of Bridges' model for personal transition occurs at the beginning, when we accept the change, when we say yes to the journey, and we begin to see the new path as an adventure to embrace. When the pandemic first hit, we've all gone through this because we've gone through it many times in our lives, but we've gone through it particularly with this pandemic. Everything's topsy-turvy. But I'll tell you, it really hit churches hard because everything we've ever known about, quote, doing church didn't work. It didn't work. It's out the window. We had to let go of old ways. No big meetings, no hugging, covering our faces, our smiles with a mask. And we all felt, and perhaps still do to some extent, a bit of depression or anger or anxiety as we wondered what would come next. But we did go through that period of creativity. While we were kind of in some ways wringing our hands and wondering what would happen, we also began to accept this new normal, and we found ways to integrate the changes that the pandemic created. We created our own YouTube channel. We polished our Facebook, and we updated our website. We discovered Zoom, and we learned to work with it. I mean, there was a learning curve here that was just kind of off the charts for most of us. But when we began to say yes to it and stepped into it, it became exciting. We have our monthly media meetings with Heather and Melinda and Ed Pena and others and John. And what we're doing is we're coming together to brainstorm, what can we do to make this work? What's different? How can we do this? And so changes are taking place, and they're good changes that could never have come about had we resisted, had we stayed in that phase 1. So today we do have, on Zoom, we've got Coffee with the Rev on Tuesday. We've got Heather's concert. Marianne went over all of them on Wednesday night. Guided meditations on Facebook from our practitioners. Video affirmations and prayers on our website. And John's going to teach a class on Zoom. None of this would have hit our radar if the pandemic hadn't hit us. And on site, we're continuing our spiritual circle with social distancing and using CDC guidelines. So we can see this process really happening right in front of us. But when we see change and integration as a process, rather than a series of isolated events, then we can learn and grow from those changes. And that becomes our starting point of a spiritual awakening. Because grappling with isolated events, we are lost in the act of trying to solve the problem at the level of the problem. When we see this process as a spiritual spiral that leads to deeper wisdom and understanding, then what we had been tackling as a problem becomes an opportunity for something new and greater. So as we see this creative process taking place in ourselves, that which we have called endings and beginnings are no longer compartmentalized experiences, but meld into a greater wholeness. And not only are we turning change into transition, but we are turning transition into transformation. The hero embarks on the journey for physical or material reasons. He must slay the dragon, he must find the golden fleece, he must search for the Holy Grail. And while he may be successful in his physical encounters, he returns with the ultimate treasure, that of being spiritually transformed. And we are all on that hero's journey, every single one of us. So as we explore our own spiritual awakening this month, let's begin by seeing process in the changes that we're experiencing. We take time to realize that the ending is the beginning and the integration of the change is our path of transformation. And we become comfortable with that. And when an ending creates the opportunity for expansion, then we are moving up that spiritual spiral. We are forever awakening to the spiritual truth of who and what we are. Our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, tells us the ultimate goal of life does not mean that we shall ever arrive at a spiritual destination where everything remains static and inactive. That which to our present understanding seems an ultimate goal will, when attained, be but the starting point for a new and further evolution. We believe in an eternal upward spiral of existence. And in that spiraling up, by the way, we may revisit old issues. Money, relationships, career, health, other things, that we've met and we've worked on before. I did this, I've worked on this. Believe me, when you become a practitioner, you really work hard at uncovering anything that might be holding back your true self. But what I can hear in practitioners and other students is, wow, I thought I'd handled that. Here it is again. But we had dealt with it. We have to look at these things like an onion. We had dealt with it at the level where we were. And when it hits us again, it's an invitation to go deeper. Dr. Peggy Bassett was a beloved colleague to many, many of us. She once said, "We are still confused, but at a higher level and about more important things." So her humor reveals something about the process of spiritual awakening. We spiral upward, sometimes covering ground we think we had already walked before, but also seeing with fresh and eyes that are increasingly wise. Spiritual awakening leads us away from separation and toward connection. It leads us away from the material and provides a pathway for us to know what really matters. It's a way to see the blessing in every experience, every event, every creation. And it's a way to live as part of something bigger, expressing the love that we are. It's a way for God to be God, uniquely as you and uniquely as me. And what better way to end an old year and begin a new one. Thank you. Namaste.
This is a song that presented itself, that the seed of this song presented itself a couple of months ago when John and I were talking about overwhelm and, about, you were talking about, isolated events. Well, I think all last year we had an event of isolation, and these words kind of gave birth to a song last night. And I figured the ukulele was so appropriate because
John and Gray and I actually met each other in at CSL Tucson a couple of years ago, before I was ever here, and before John and Gray were ever here. And I was playing a ukulele song at that time, so it was his words, so I figured it was best to set it to ukulele music. So let's see if we can make it work, shall we?
Have you ever seen a duck on the pond, cool as a cucumber on top, but under the water, paddling like crazy? Now did you ever get so stuck and overwhelmed you can't force it all yourself? You wanna give up and cry like a baby. That's the time best laid plans can crumble where you stand. That's the time to relax, release and let go, and go with the float. Go with the float. Just float along. Go with the float. Sometimes feel like I'm lost at sea, and I'm looking for someone to come and rescue me, but they're just not here, so I keep on swimming. Eventually there's got to be a shoreline ahead of me. No matter what direction, I know I'll make a connection. One island might be more frightening, the other may be more exciting, but I can't control which way I go, so I go with the float. Just float along. Go with the float. Go with the float. Go with the float. You can too. Just relax and go with the float. Go with the float. Don't try to fix the how of A to Z. Just ask that question now and let it be. Put your plans aside and you just might find that God can do it all by itself just fine. So go with that float. Go with the float. It's better in the warm water. Go with the float. Go with that float. Just relax, surrender and go. Go with the float.
If you'd like to do that, we appreciate it so very much. Would you join me, Nan? My gift goes forth to heal, prosper, and bless all that it touches. It is evidence of my conviction that God is the source and substance of my supply. I share generously of my good, knowing that it returns to me multiplied abundantly. And so it is. Yeah. Okay, let's just take a moment to close this portion out in prayer and just to take a moment to give thanks for this this gorgeous day, this gorgeous opportunity to meet together, and this incredible new year. I know that there is one mind. It is the mind of God. It's the mind that we use right now. And from that mind, we choose to see the highest and best good in all things. We choose to see change as something positive, something that we can relish as we move into a new way of looking at the world and of looking at our life. I speak a special word for anyone who's experiencing any kind of a challenge. And I just know that God, Spirit, has the power to heal and is doing so right now. And I just simply release all of these words into that law of mind. I give thanks for the abundance that we are, for the joy that we are, for the prosperity, for the peace, and for the delight that we share as we say together, and so it is. Thank you so very much. Happy New Year.
I'm so lucky.